Klingon lures a mate.
Hello everyone, Jay Warden here, and welcome to my recap and review of the episode The Dauphin, or Dauphin, I still don't quite know how to pronounce that. A by-the-numbers Romance of the Week episode involving young love with Wesley and with some hilariously bad monster costumes. Don't forget those spoilers, otherwise, enjoy. The Enterprise is picking up the leader of the planet Dalet 4 called Salia, who has been living in exile on a barren wasteland of a planet for the last 16 years with the intention of brokering a peace on her fractured homeworld, which has been plagued by the standard TNG fare of two warring factions. Salia beams aboard with a diminutive but overprotective companion called Anya, who just seems to want to ruin her fun by keeping her away from people. As Picard escorts them to her quarters, Wesley gets a Wayne's World moment. And Salia seems to be just as interested, but again Anya isn't having any of that and tells her to heal. The damage is done though, with Wesley clearly smitten, so pumps data for information about her. On the bridge as the ship gets underway, Troy expresses her concern to Picard that their new passengers aren't what they appear to be. So Picard quickly checks in on Salia, who asks about Wesley quickly before Anya glares her back into submission and thanks Picard for checking up on her. The bridge crew wonder how this apparently delicate looking young girl is supposed to bring peace to her world, which has been fighting literally over night and day for countless generations. Back in her quarters, Salia is now talking to some random young girl her age who appears to be giving her counsel on how to be a good leader. Salia doesn't really want this job, but she has no choice in the matter and looks wistfully out the window. But suddenly there's a weird sound, and instead of a young girl, a hilariously goggly-eyed small furry creature is now in her place, offering comfort, proving Troy's earlier concern that perhaps these two are not what they appear to be on the outside at least. Meanwhile in engineering, Wesley just can't keep his mind off Salia, causing him to not concentrate on his work, pissing off LaForge in the process. LaForge though understands that Wesley is at the age where hormones take control, so tells him to take the day off and go talk to the girl, but to otherwise not bother him about it. So, for some reason, his first port of call for advice about the ladies is Worf, and though we all know Worf is a ladies' man at heart, Wesley quickly realises that perhaps the Klingon mating rituals are not really for him, and perhaps more wisely goes to Riker next for advice. Riker decides to do a little role-playing and gets Guinan involved to show Wesley how he might approach a situation, but then both of them end up really getting into their roleplay much to Wesley's annoyance, so finally decides to just pluck up the courage to go talk to Salia, who happily invites him in to show her how the replicator works. After a brief getting-to-know-you session, Salia is envious of all the places Wesley has visited in this time, given she's been stuck on a desolate world for years, so he decides it's time to fix that and takes her to the holodeck to show the girl a good time. Anya, meanwhile, has been given a tour of the ship by Worf. After being unimpressed by LaForge's maintenance work, her next stop in sickbay takes a dangerous turn as she demands Pulaski kill a patient showing signs of a disease that can be very remotely contagious and a potential threat to Salia. Pulaski of course refuses, so Anya decides she'll do it herself, and turns into another hilariously fake bad guy in a costume monster with googly red eyes. After a brief struggle with Worf, Picard and security quickly arrive and pacify the situation. Anya is indignant, but Picard tells her in no uncertain terms to stay the fuck in her quarters for the rest of the trip under guard, to which she reluctantly agrees, and after exchanging some smack talk with Worf, is now confined for the moment. Meanwhile, the episode's Romance of the Week plot is well underway as Wesley shows off several spectacular holographic locations to Salia before ending up in 10 forward eating dessert. Salia though is upset because of the isolation she will soon once again have to endure, and is further upset when Wesley suggests she stay on board, knowing she can't. Anya though, ever the protector, has told Picard to find her and is quickly brought back to her quarters, much to Wesley's disappointment. Picard later tells Wesley that for the greater good of the ship and crew, he has to stay away from Salia to prevent any further issues, while Anya tells Salia she's got to stay away from the corrupting influence of Wesley. But of course young love isn't going to be separated for long, and Salia manages to slip away unnoticed to see Wesley. But as the two kiss, it seems that Anya was watching all along and once again in monstrous form tries to scare Wesley off. But this time Salia isn't having any of this and transforms herself into a creature, forcing Anya to back down. With the situation calm for now, the Enterprise finally arrives in orbit of their homeworld Dalet 4, where Anya says it's time for her to say goodbye permanently, having done her job of raising and protecting Salia for all these years, and even flirts briefly with Worf. With her time on the Enterprise at an end, Salia makes one last visit to Wesley, apologising for not telling him that she was herself a shape-shifting alien, but of course he's a bit upset at her deception and tells her to leave. He knows that he can't just leave things like that, so does the right thing, goes to the transporter room to wish her one final goodbye, and even gets to see her in her true form. Finally, after she leaves, Wesley goes to mope and 10 forward with Guinan offering her usual sage advice, ending the episode on a bittersweet note. Well, there's not really too much to say on this one, and honestly I really don't like Romance of the Week episodes. They're inconsequential and too often unbelievable within the framework of a 45-minute episode. A good romance or relationship is built up over several episodes, or even seasons. The relationship between Captain Sisko and Cassidy Yates comes to mind in particular. However, despite that, This episode is not as bad as I remembered, but it's still a very skippable, inconsequential episode with annoying story points. I mean, basically the plot, if you can call it that, is Enterprise picks up passengers, doomed from the start romance, unnecessary belligerent bodyguard, and then passengers beam away. It's not really much of a plot, there's no meaty moral dilemmas or interesting concepts, certainly a come down from the last episode's superb Measure of a Man. I guess though it was inevitable that Wesley would get saddled with their fall in love plot, but to be fair to the episode, I think it's actually a little bit more believable here because of what young love is like, especially with all those hormones racing about. The chemistry between him and Celia, played by Jamie Hubbard, is pretty good, it doesn't feel too awkward, and Hubbard provides a believable innocence and wonder at the world around her considering she's been so isolated all her life. Wesley himself has maybe played too much for the overly naive young boy here, and I think Geordi should have given him a bit more of a dressing down for not concentrating on his work rather than just letting him go off to the Dave to talk to the girl. Although I did find it kind of funny that Wesley was asking Geordi for advice about talking to women when Geordi himself is not all that good talking to women, but we'll get to that in the future. By far the best part of the episode was Worf and Riker trying to give him the dating advice. Worf is quite simply hilarious here as he gets excited by describing what Klingon sex is like with heavy objects thrown at each other and screaming in their face. It's one of those rare times that Worf actually properly smiles, or at least is clearly enjoying the thoughts that he's having right now, and I think Michael Dorn did a pretty good job playing this for comedic effect. Riker meanwhile gets this great little roleplay session with Guinan where the two get so into it that it almost felt like an improv session between the two actors. I can actually imagine the two of them having quite a lot of fun with that scene and getting a good laugh out of it. What I think really brings the episode down is Celia's companion and protector Anya, played by Paddy Edwards. She's constantly belligerent, seeing any tiny problem or issue as a massive threat that must be dealt with, culminating in a scene in sickbay where she tries to kill one of Pulaski's patients. Though I do like the idea of a shape-shifting alien, the special effects tech and budget of the time really didn't age well for this one. And it's still some years before we get something much cooler in concept and design with the tech to back it up more at least, with the creation of Odo and the Founders as a race. The monstrous forms both Anya and eventually Celia take up are hilariously bad, with these huge static bulging eyes that I simply couldn't take seriously. Showrunner Maurice Hurley and the episode's director Rob Bowman didn't like the monster aspect either, with Hurley saying that they never did well with monster-based episodes, while Bowman acknowledged how cheap looking the monster suits were, trying to minimise their time on screen as much as he could. The final shot of Celia in her true form was a better effort, being mostly an amorphous blob of white light. It's not stunning, though it's obviously supposed to be, but it's much better than the cheap monster outfits. The only thing that I kinda liked here with regards to Anya was the bond that seems to form between her and Worf. Both warriors, both protectors, despite basically having a smack-talking session after their fight, at the end there seems to be this genuine mutual respect between the two. I think this aspect would have worked better had the episode sought to pair the two characters off a lot more, with Anya slowly learning to trust Worf and maybe even having a friendly fight together to strengthen that bond and trust, whilst also allowing Celia a little more freedom with Wesley. Other than this though, as I said at the start, there's really little else to talk about here. The two warring faction background is once again just a means to an end. There's no real explanation of the conflict except that one side is perpetually in light and the other in darkness due to a tidally locked planet, and is otherwise a vehicle just to explain what Celia's purpose is. It's a perfectly forgettable, skippable episode, more so if you just don't like Wesley Crusher episodes. The only thing I'll say in Wesley's defense is once again he's not obnoxious or saving the day as is his apparent trope, but it's perfectly serviceable with the material that's given to him. Next time, it's back to a more quality sci-fi outing as the Enterprise starts breaking down from an alien computer virus while trying to solve a mystery when her sister ship, the USS Yamato, explodes in front of them, along with a proper on-screen return of the Romulans in the episode, The Contagion. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did then please do check out my other reviews as well, and also if you haven't yet, please like, subscribe and share. Until next time, this is Jay Warden, signing off.